Death at Bishop's Keep. Chapter 44. 3/4 of a pound of flour, 6 ounces of chopped white vegetable butter, 1 teaspoon baking powder, cold water, 1 quart button or cup, mushrooms, pepper, and salt. Make a crust with the flour, baking powder, and 5 ounces of the butter. Line it with a greased pudding basin. Put in the mushrooms with the remaining ounce of butter, pepper, and salt, and moisten with a little water. Finish off like a beef steak pudding. Boil or steam for 1.5 hours or longer. Miss Breton's Book of Household Management, 1871. One of the girls was gone from the line outside the servants' hall, a place taken by a stout, scowling woman of middle age whose black brows were drawn together over small, suspicious eyes. She gave Charles a dour look as he rapped at the door, then went in without waiting for summons. The constable was sitting at one end of the table, talking with the seated girl of 11 or 12. Her hair pleated into a single thick braid down her back, her face so white that the freckles stood out, giving her a more than fragile look. Charles frowned. He was steadfastly against the employment of young children, and his heart went out immediately to the girl sitting at the edge of the chair, nervously answering the constable's questions. The constable looked up, irritated. "I said no interruptions," he barked, and then pushed back his chair, his face blank with surprise. "Charlie Sheridan, is that you?" "It is, Ned," Charles said, and gave his old friend a warm handshake. "How many years have it been?" "All of 20, I'd warrant," Lakin warned, his ruddy face split with a grin. He stood back, shaking his head. "Sir Charles, is it?" "An honour bestowed liberally is scarcely an honour," Charles said with a dismissive wave. "It was only one of the dozens that the Queen showered with her largesse. So you are of the Scotland Yard sort, after all." "In a manner of speaking, I suppose." Lakin glanced at the girl who was gaping up at them. "I'm just finishing up here. Shall I treat you to a pint at the Head afterward? You can tell me what you've been up to." "Yes, to the pint," Charles said, pulling out a chair, "although we may have to choose a later day, if it's all the same to you. I'd like to join this business." He smiled at the girl. "Which are you, child, scullery or Trini?" "Scullery, sir," the girl said nervously. "Harriet." "Ah, good, Harriet," he said. He took out his bundle, put it on the table in front of Lakin. "Do you remember, Ned, our tramps through the woods in those long-gone days and what we often found there?" He untied the handkerchief. The constable studied the mushroom carefully, an intent look on his face. "Is that what I think it is?" "Quite. Do you mind if I ask a question or two of the young lady?" The constable nodded, and Charles turned to the girl. "I would like to tell me what you can about the preparation of the evening meal. Did you assist?" "Oh, yes, sir," the girl beamed with obvious pride. "Cook said I were a great help." The constable leaped forward. "How was that?" The girl was now eager. "Well, I done as usual, cleaning pots, straightening the table. Then she let me cut up the mushrooms for the pudding." She spoke with a sense of having learned a new skill, one that was usually reserved for those of higher place in the kitchen. "Go on," the constable prompted. "Well, you see, sir, things were in a frightful state on account that we hadn't expected to do luncheon for company, and then the sweets tray were knocked into the fire, which weren't nobody's fault. We was just so busy we was flying round trying to get it all done up and proper. And then cook had to make a new sweet, 'cause all the other were all over soot, and asked me to cut up the mushrooms for the pudding. I'd never done so before, so she showed me." "And what did she say?" the constable asked. "She said there was a different kinds, and I was to cut 'em up all together, like the one she done." Charles slid the open bundle in front of the girl. "Did any of the mushrooms you cut up look like this?" The girl glanced at the specimen. She answered without any hesitation at all. "Yes, sir." "Are you sure? This is important." "Yes, sir," the girl replied. "It was the very last one I cut up. It was so beautiful I wanted it put in. I knew it would make the pudding taste grand." Lakin looked sharply at Charles. Charles nodded very slightly. The girl caught the glance. "There was nothing wrong with it," she said defensively. "If it would have been bad, it wouldn't have been in the basket, would it?" Charles nodded reassuringly. "Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from?" "Sometimes cooks get them in the woods, sometimes Pocket picks them, sometimes they're bought." "Yesterday's mushrooms," Charles said. "Were they picked or bought?" The girl hesitated, obviously wondering why she was being asked so many questions about the mushrooms. "I don't know, sir. Cook just handed me the basket." "I see," Charles said. He smiled. "Do you and Cook get along?" The girl's smile echoed his. "Oh, to be sure, sir," she said brightly. "She's almost like my mum. She keeps Miss Jaggers from—" She caught herself in mid-sentence, her guilty expression mirroring the realization that she might have been saying all a little too much. "From what, Harriet?" Charles asked gently. When she did not answer, he said, "Come now, child. Someone will tell us. If not you, then one of the others. What did Mrs. Jaggers threaten to do?" "She didn't threaten, sir." The girl's anger was artless. "She'd done it. She beat me till Cook made her stop. And she beat Nettie too, and locked her in the cellar till in the dark of night, blackening grates, even after her candle went out." She began to sniffle. "Not to speak ill of the dead, sir, but Mrs. Jaggers weren't a kind woman." "And how did Cook make her stop beating you?" Harriet looked up, torn between her reluctance to betray Cook's rashness, but proud of her daring. "'Twas only water, sir. Nothing would harm." "Water?" "Cook dumped the slops on her head, and then Jaggers gave her the sack." "She did?" The constable's eyebrows went up. "Yes, but the young miss put a stop to it." Harriet's sniffles gave way to tears, and the sorrow of long-held and deeply felt offence. "It weren't just the way she beat me, sir, or Nettie. Before us, there were Jenny, who died because of her." The tears and the words intermingled, flowed faster, punctuated by the hiccups. "And Jaggers took the fire and the sofa and the jam, and Miss Ardley was going to give 'em all back, and now she's dead too, and I'll have to find a new place." The thin shoulders shook with the awful realization of unknown horrors ahead, and tears streaked unchecked down the pallid cheeks. "That's enough for now, Harriet," Lakin said quietly. "You may go. But you're not to speak of this to anyone else in any circumstance. Do you understand?" With a gulping nod, the girl wiped her nose on her apron. Then she stood up and almost ran from the room. Lakin reached for Charles's bundle and poked at the toadstool with his finger. "I take it you found this on the premises?" "In the kitchen storeroom," Charles said, "in a basket with various edible mushrooms. The symptoms of the poisoning are consistent with ingestion of amanita. Several severe abdominal cramps, vomiting, violent diarrhea, jaundice, coma. These may occur up to 12 hours after the fungus is ingested, and death can take place within 15. The constable was thoughtful. "So it appears that the two women died of eating the mushroom pudding prepared by Mrs. Pratt, who, if the girl can be relied on, may have strongly resented her employers. You concur, I take it, with my feeling that the girl's involvement was quite innocent?" "That is my impression as well," Charles replied. "Mrs. Pratt had both means and opportunity, and the girl has revealed a possible motive. You may find others when you begin to probe. I would especially dig into this business about the dead girl Jenny. There's also some connection to the parlour maid, who seemed to feel her death quite keenly." "Jenny Bliley," Lakin said. "They're sisters." He stood up. "This part of the job is not my cup of tea. I frankly prefer to go after poachers." "Are you going to take her in?" "Yes. People seem more ready to tell the truth when they are not surrounded by the comforts of home." He looked around at the bare, bleak room, however comfortless it may be. Charles would have liked to hear Cook's story, but one of the unfortunate responsibilities of staying at Marston Manor was the requirement of punctual attendance at tea. He stood. "Then I leave it to you, old man," he said. "Would you mind conveying my farewell to Miss Ardley? I will let myself out the kitchen door." There was no point in once more confronting the woman who had met his well-intentioned efforts with such an ill grace. He would only be embarrassed by her apologies when she learned she had him to thank for apprehending the killer in her kitchen. Lakin held up his hand. "One more question before you go," he said with a thoughtful look. "Could the young woman have eaten the mushroom pudding and showed no ill effects?" "Not likely. In fact, she told me that she did not eat any pudding." Lakin's thoughtful look deepened. "I wonder why not."